Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Coffee Talk podcast by Callstack. This is a podcast when we talk greatest and latest of React and React Native news with me and my friends from Callstack, Oskar and Michał. Hello, guys.
Hey, Łukasz.
Hi. Hi,
So, for today's episode, I was thinking we can do our hot takes on the latest and greatest and newest and one and only state of React Native 2022. So historically, we haven't had the own survey, but this time around, this year, our friends over at Software Mansion conducted this survey, which results of which you can find on results.stateofreactnative.com. And in the About section, you can read that this survey was conducted from 22nd December till 20th of January this year. And we got over 1,800 people responding to this survey. So that's not a huge number, but that's not small, right?
It's. I think it's pretty good, especially compared to the original state of JS, which got 39,000 developers, and from the way bigger JavaScript community. So I think it's a pretty decent result.
And I hope the community around this survey will grow and this survey will get better and more inclusive over time. The survey was, like I said, conducted by Software Mansion and popularized by Sebastian from This Week in React. So we will have some skew of the data because of that, because of the focusing the community on those two focal points. But let's not get ahead of the facts. Let's jump straight into it. The first category that maybe one word of announcement. We will not be reading the whole survey. The survey is deep, it's extensive, it has a lot of buzzwords, it has a lot of names, it has a lot of numbers. So
a lot of libraries, yeah.
We wouldn't do anyone a favor if we would just read this thing. Just go ahead and read it all. It's really interesting. We gathered some of our opinions, some of our bullet points around the specific parts. I want to start, if you allow me, with resources. And I would like to thank everyone who took the survey and who voted for this podcast as one of the best podcasts that there are around React Native community. So thank you so much. We appreciate your appreciation. And I would like also to give a shout out to React Native Radio, who is on number 1. It's amazing podcast. I listen to it almost every week. Jamon and the whole internet thread, they do a great job with it. So thanks a lot. And another thing from the resources category that I want to mention is the React Native EU community. So online community, React Native EU. I know it's only 2 voters here, but it's a recognition nonetheless. Not many people got to this question, honestly.
Yeah. I think it's particularly interesting that this section is filled by 70 to 200 or 300 respondents, where most of the other categories were filled by like 1,200 developers or close to 1,400. So I'm not sure what's the deal with that. This makes this data less reliable, but the answers are still there, and they are the best we have in this space.
I can also see that you can be an active React Native developer and you will follow This Week in React, Twitters, blog posts, podcasts, but you are not really likely to join Discord server, like online community that you are a part of, right? So I guess that's like half of the answer here. Okay, moving on to maybe about React Native developers who did this survey.
I would like to apart from the age, it's all, of course, apparent that most of the React Native developers are in the age of 24 to 25 to 34. But what's interesting in this survey is that, according to it, most of the respondents are, or most of the React Native developers are from France, 11%, and then from USA. I think that's a culprit of this survey being advertised, or rather supported by This Week in React newsletter by Sebastian Lorber. So yeah, that's some funny coincidence. And if we scroll a bit lower, we will see the gender, and here it's apparent that 2% of React Native developers are women, which is 24 people. Like the vast majority, 97% is men. That's something to think about, and I don't want to dive any deeper into this topic because there is so much to say.
Yeah. You just have to keep that in mind when you read this, that it's about participants of this particular survey. And like in my day-to-day, in CallStack, for example, I don't see as much disparity between men and women, not 2% versus 98, but it is an issue that we have in tech space in general, but it seems like in React Native it's even more. Moving on to developer background.
One thing I would specifically want to call out is contribution to React Native libraries. I'm especially thankful for the survey to incorporate this question, because this gives us overview of who is voting, who is responding. And here, out of 1,800 developers, 36% are have ever contributed to a React Native library, like one of those third-party native modules or native component. 36% contributors is way higher, like another level of or order of magnitude of the answer I would expect from my experience with developers and their contributions. So this gives me that slight
suspicion.
Yeah, that it's rather a this active React Native community survey than
what I think,
good representation of regular React Native developers. These are definitely not regular developers.
Yeah, it's also worth mentioning, as this number is definitely lower than 36% in real world. So if you want to contribute but don't have the knowledge or any idea how to fix a particular bug in the library, you can also spend some time polishing the issue description, providing a good reproduction, and that will help the maintainers a lot.
Yeah, and these are all valid contributions to the open source and to the libraries that we're using, to the whole landscape.
Yeah, I think that when we get further with the survey, like a year further or 2 years further, that number will decrease, but not necessarily because we have less contributor. The pool of developers that take the survey will be bigger, so more representative.
Yeah, definitely. I wanted to also point out in this section, if you could scroll down to the OS version targeting. Yeah, so there we can see that almost 400 developers are targeting the latest iOS 16, which is kind of interesting that so big percentage is targeting the latest version. So
yeah. it's amazing because in my day to day, we are discouraged from targeting the newest system. We are encouraged to support lower versions. One important thing that I want to mention in developer background is the previous experience of those developers. So you would guess that the previous experience for most of the developers taking the survey is React because it's like a natural path. The second one is like a regular front end, but not React. But the third category of people coming into React Native is backend developer, which is so surprising to me because I don't know any backend developers working in React Native.
Yeah, and I think this is coming from people that are so-called full stack. They're doing both front-end and back-end development. So this is probably that.
Yeah. Okay. I'm skipping the platform APIs. We covered it pre-show and we didn't find anything exciting there. But I found something exciting in state management. So first of all, I want to pitch the podcast that we did 2 months ago with Ola, who is our colleague from ColdStack. It's on our ColdStack Engineer channel and we were discussing the state management libraries in general. Ola just wrote a book about state management in React Native. And when we discussed this, there is some disconnect between what we discussed and what is in this survey. Because in this survey, of course, you have just regular React state, right? Use state, this state, use context. Then you have Redux, which is ubiquitous library, most often used in big corporation. And then you don't have MobX, which is like a natural counterpart to Redux in every comparison. In every YouTube video, you have Redux versus MobX, and MobX is not here. I don't know why. MobX is down there with the, sorry, how it's called, other state management. But like, come on. I don't understand this. So that's what is most interesting to me in this section.
Yeah, maybe it's that MobX is more likely used to on the web than in React Native, but that's what people answered. So
at the same time, you have Ignite from Infinite Red, which is popular boilerplate, and it uses MobX, right? And you have Jamon from React Native Radio, who is maintainer of MobX state tree for React Native. So, okay, moving on.
And we will see later that these are actually used by developers, those boilerplates. So, but let's
data
not up too much. One thing in data fetching that struck me is that 89% actually of the respondents use Axios when we have fully capable fetch API.
I don't find it surprising at all. How old is fetch in React Native?
I don't know. I mean, probably from the almost. No, I don't know, to be honest.
I remember that when I used to work a few years ago, we always use Axios because it's very powerful. The API is really nice. I really like it a lot. And Fetch was there as well. But if you have those kind of legacy projects, you work with Axios. Why?
Yeah, I remember like the only reason to use Axios was canceling requests, which wasn't possible with Fetch until we got abort controller. But now and a few years back, today it's all fully capable of doing that. Like one nice thing about Axios is that it has this concept of interceptors.
Interceptors. I was going to say,
yeah, requests and responses. So this is pretty cool. But on the other hand, it adds like 18 or 12 kilobytes to the bundle. And if you don't really need it, I don't see a reason to add it.
Yeah.
Yeah, what's also really interesting in this section, if you could scroll down, that is that we have RTK query down here in the older data fetching. And since we saw the 80% of usage of Redux in projects, this is quite surprising that it's only like 14 users.
Yeah, because that's probably the reason that people complain to me about Redux having boilerplate when we speak during the interview sessions. So they're just not using RTK or RTK query,
which is weird. But yeah.
When what's also maybe not weird but interesting, something that I wanted to call out here is that if we scroll a bit up again, there is TRPC, which is just guiding usage. It's at 7% now, and TRPC is this hot new popular technology, let's say, on the web and Node.js, where you can use TypeScript to share some data fetching layer between server and client, and it's surprisingly easy and convenient to use, and it's also at the top of the interest if you switch to the interest tab. So this is interesting to observe that how web technologies influence what we do in mobile.
Yeah, you got me interested. Switching to navigation, no surprises here. React navigation is the king. Can we end this subject and move on?
Yeah, just a huge shout out to Satya from our team, who's doing a great job maintaining this library. And I can move on.
No, I was actually joking. I want to say something about the Expo router, which is still experimental and already used by 12% of survey respondents. But
yeah,
again,
that's actually amazing.
Software mention closely related to Expo, so probably this number is skew in a sense. But I really like how this is inspired by Next.js navigation and folder based. It's very nice to see a different pattern in like established environment. You see something new and you think, okay, I can do it this way as well, right? It's breaking the paradigm, what I'm saying.
It's another thing from the web that's influencing React Native. You can see that this is we have this one ecosystem of React developers, React apps, and JavaScript, and it's influencing each other. And speaking of which, we have React Router at pretty high usage of 44%, which from our perspective, from mobile development, is not the most optimal way of routing on mobile. There are just different paradigms of navigation here and there, but still, people are using that. They're finding it reliable, and that's okay as well. It's probably making them way more productive.
Yeah, I'm moving on to styling, and I know that in style, the same team goes to the styling because again, web technology, which is Tailwind, is being brought from web to mobile by people who like it and try to use it in React Native. So I think that's great, although I don't like it because I don't understand it because I wasn't brought up in this Tailwind ecosystem on web. I like my style sheet API better.
Jump on the bandwagon.
I feel like Tailwind is a framework of styling and you have to get familiar with this before you find it useful, and the learning curve is quite steep. That's my opinion.
But once you learn it, it's definitely worth it. It's great to read
nice.
the book from the creators. There's some more thought behind this whole system, so it's definitely worth exploring, learning from them as well.
Oh, yeah. So what's also really interesting is that we have styled components here at 60% of usage. And that's interesting because styled components has some performance issues in React Native. So, yeah. Michał, you also wanted to add?
It's related to adding more and more component wrappers. It's one of those examples of the death by 1,000 cuts in terms of style components. And also, I think if we go down to the sentiment analysis for this library, we will see that style components, it has pretty lot of negative sentiment, and that's probably related also to the fact that React team is discouraging using of CSS and JS libraries that can't be extracted to regular CSS.
Yeah. What should I move on to? Are we talking about UI component libraries now?
Yes.
And which is the best and the greatest and the finest? It's React Native Paper from Callstack, from our dear friend Ryu. Great library. React Native Paper actually just released. Was it just released, or I think beta was available before that? But the V5 is in stable version now, and V5 actually uses the Material U language, design language from Google.
It's a Material Design. In the version 3 of Material Design, they rebranded it to Material U, which is quite confusing, to be honest. And React Native Paper is kind enough to support both Material Design version 2 and version 3. It was released pretty recently. And one extra thing I wanted to call out is that there is Tamagui, which is
in other UI components libraries.
Yeah. And it's another. So maybe it was a part of the styling. But hey, what's Dripsy?
I don't know. I don't know. I feel so ashamed because I don't know what Dripsy is. It's here. It's getting 6% usage from the survey responders, but I don't know what it is. I mean, Shoutem UI, I also don't know what it is. And UI Kitten, I mean, it's just, I guess, a component library. And UI Kitten has more. Like the paper, native base, and React Native elements, that's the holy trinity of UI libraries. And what's down here, I have no idea.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but and still, if you go to interest, Dripsy is at 50% of interest.
Okay.
This year, so it's definitely
this is
something
like a new kid on the block.
Yeah, that's something to take our eyes on, and I think we can skip to another section.
Yeah, I don't want to discuss graphics. I don't think there's not that much anything surprising there. Let's move on to React Native features. And in React Native features, I think there is something important around new architecture.
Yeah, definitely. So you can switch to the interest tab. And as we can see, everyone is interested in new architecture, in Fabric, in Turbo modules. But if you switch to the usage tab, actually, there is 20% of usage, which is actually quite good for the new architecture, which is still marked as experimental by Meta. And we got Hermes at the first place here of usage.
Yeah. With 60%. So it's pretty great to see this wide adoption, especially that Hermes is the default since 070. So yeah, great. Go Hermes, and it helps our apps to improve the time to interactive and load faster. So it's definitely worth a try at least.
For the new architecture, I also need to point out. that this 22%, again, this is professionals filling in this survey. It's not 22% across the board for React Native developers. It's 22% for people from which 30% are actively contributing to some libraries. So
yeah. So probably this is the usage they're coming from. Maybe migrating their own libraries or helping out in the ecosystem migration. One last thing I wanted to call out is that Meta or React Native core team is particularly unhappy that we as a community use Fabric and Turbo modules, which are code names for some parts of the new architecture. They wanted us to just refer to it as a whole, as new architecture. But I guess that's just gonna stay with us as with how it was with React Fiber. We still stuck with that name for a few years before it became like the default and the standard way of rendering things on inside of React.
I want to say something else from React Native features. There is this one interesting stat that I found here. Oh, it is here. Do you integrate React Native with applications written using other technology? So this stat is confusing somehow because 80% of 1,200 responders said that they're using it only in Greenfield apps. But that means that 20% use brownfield approach in some of their applications. So again, professionals and not general public. Brownfield applications are not an easy thing to do. So if 1/5 of the survey responders is using the brownfield approach, professionals. That's all I wanted to say.
Yeah, and it's worth to acknowledge that it's not some kind of niche. There are real apps, real developers working on those brownfield applications. It's not only Expo and Greenfield. There are more complex things here, and I would like to check the performance profiling with Flipper being used the most, followed by native profiling and React Native performance. There are apparently three different libraries that are called React Native performance, and I know it's kind of complicated, but fortunately, last month we released a guide to performance optimization at ColeStack, this year's edition. So you can find about all those tools and how to profile your app, how to debug there. Without further ado, I would get to other app aspects.
Yes, yeah, and other app aspects,
which is particularly interesting because apparently. Testing, which I guess we will scroll to. Oh yeah, we're there. Testing is an other app aspect. So I think this shows what developers think about boring stuff like health of the code base and stability. So it's not surprising that Jest is the king here. With more than 90% of usage, and React Native testing library is used for integration testing of JS, and we were particularly proud of it because this is the library that we bootstrap at ColeStack for one of our clients, and later on we teamed up with the testing library group to have it like a official shape of the whole family of those libraries for different platforms.
What I want to point out,
and then there is Detox, and this new Maestro, yeah.
Yeah, Maestro is great. I looked at it briefly and it blew my mind how easy you can write tests. If you can call them writing tests, when you click in some interactive editor and just picking up the test IDs and all that, it's really, really nice. And I think it will grow in popularity for the next survey.
Yeah, let's hope to do so.
Going to the tools, and in tools, I think, Oscar, you wanted to say something about the JavaScript and TypeScript.
Yeah, I can say it. So as we can see on the graph, there is like only 50% developers or survey respondents that are using 100% of TypeScript in their code base, and 8.5% of survey respondents using 100% of JavaScript. And we've also got like 20 to 30% people in between. So yeah, that's.
So the conclusion is that React Native developers code in TypeScript. Majority of us code in TypeScript, and almost like negligible portion of the responders use JavaScript exclusively. Yeah, and then to the React Native alternatives, which is an interesting graph.
Yes, definitely. So if you could show the interest graph first. So here we have Swift UI, which is like at 59% of interest. So React Native developers are certainly interested in Swift UI. But it's not really an alternative, since Swift UI is mostly iOS-based UI framework. And you can actually use Swift UI inside of React Native, and you can use React Native inside of Swift UI. But if we get to the usage tab,
going there,
we can see that Swift UI is actually at 19%, and the most used one is Cordova, which just renders a web view. So
I think you can see in the sentiment, that people are using Cordova and Ionic, but they don't want to. But they're still using it.
Or they're migrating their apps to React Native.
Moving on to opinions. So, Michał, is React Native ecosystem changing too fast?
Yeah, according to 25% of respondents, it is changing too fast, which I think it's pretty understandable. But majority of users think that React Native is in this happy state. Like actually 80% of the developers are happy or very happy with the general state of React Native, and 82% of them are also happy with the direction that the React Native is heading. This is what I would expect. It's good to have this kind of data to back those expectations, and we're showing the pain points also that developers have with React Native. These are pretty known from the survey that was pretty popular late last year. And number one pain point is upgrades. This is specifically for non-Expo libraries. And this is something that we're tackling this year at Callstack in the React Native CLI team. We'll be figuring out whatever possible to improve this upgrading experience and make sure that next year that's gonna fall way lower in the pain points array.
Yeah, I think so. So I think it's time to wrap up this episode, and maybe while we are on the opinions tab, we can share our own opinions or context around this, and we can end. So Oscar, can you start with your view about the State of React Native 2022 survey.
Yeah, sure. So my view is that this is an awesome initiative from folks at Software Mansion, and I'm really looking forward to the next year's edition.
Yeah, from my point of view, I'm really happy that someone finally took the step at filling this gap in the React Native community, even though there is like as every data source is biased in some way, it's still some kind of data that we can maybe base our decision or opinions from, and it's important to have that. And I'm really looking forward to the next year where we will have some data to compare how the community is changing from 2022 to 2023. So yeah, great job, all the developers and managers involved on this from Software Mansion, and good luck on the next version.
Yeah, I think I agree with Michał. I think this particular survey is a snapshot of this particular community and this particular year. So I think when the community broadens and there will be more responders next year, we will have much more accurate data for broader community. And it will be great to see the journey of some of those libraries and some of those trends. Thank you guys so much for being here with me and recording this coffee talk by CallStack. We were talking about State of React Native. You can find it on results.stateofreactnative.com. And if you want to share opinions with us, you can find us on Twitter, you can find us on YouTube, and you can find us all on callstack.com. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you very much, Luca, for hosting us. Next time. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.